All right. So as I mentioned, for those of you that were with me on January 22nd, this may look like review a little bit. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to ask one of my tech members, Logan, would you mind just kind of going through and creating gathering email addresses for everyone here, just so I can share out the presentation materials, as well as we can send that exit survey out. What's that? Email address. Yep. If we just put it in a Google Sheet, that would be great. Then we'll be able to send that out and share it with everyone. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to do with this training is, one, definitely make sure that you get the slide deck. There are some links within the slide deck that show you how to do this on a variety of different devices, including the iPad. But you need to have that link to be able to access it. But I definitely want to share that out with you. A couple things that you might remember from January 22nd as we went through this is we really did want to focus these trainings on helping you become more efficient at your job, learning new tools, other things like that. When we went through the training, some of you shared that you weren't aware of some of these things. I have added some additional slides in here, so there will be some new things that you'll see here. But I also want this to be interactive. So at any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions. But as you may recall, one of the things that we talked about was just some of the ways that you can use Gmail a little bit more efficiently in responding through through emails and things like that. Couple things that I wanted to show were just labels and folders. We talked a little bit about the difference between labels and folders previously. Just as a reminder and a recap, Gmail does not have folders that you utilize. What they use is a product called labels, right? If you were familiar with Outlook or using Office 365, a message can only be in one folder, but in Gmail, a message can have multiple labels. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but like it says here, Gmail labels are similar to folders with some key differences. They're used to store and organize messages, but the difference really is you can apply several labels to each folder, right? We'll go through and we'll talk about this, but to create a label, if you're using a laptop or you have access to a full desktop browser, inside the Gmail app on the left-hand side, you can scroll down to where it shows labels and you can create new labels. Otherwise, if you're on an iPad, we have these links in here for iPad instructions. And right here, it's talking about creating labels to organize Gmail. And then there's instructions for iPhone and iPad and how to create labels within iPhone and iPad. Again, this slide deck will be shared out with you, but I did want to show you what that kind of looks like. And so as we think about labels, labels are what you see right over here, right? To add new labels in this particular interface, there is a plus sign next to your labels. If you don't see this, try clicking this more. And then scrolling down, you can see manage labels, you can see create new label, or you can see labels here. If I hit this plus sign, and I know it's a bit hard to see with the way my background is set up there, the Chihuly glass, you can click that plus sign, you can click manage labels, create new labels, and what it does is it gives you the ability to put in a new label name. That label can be whatever you'd like. Earlier when we were talking about this, you can organize your emails by the academic year. So if you wanted to say, hey, this is 23-24, and then within 23-24, you might have things like, student goals, right? Recess supervision, reading supports, whatever it is, right? Professional development emails, payroll emails, benefit emails. You can create as many folders as you want there. You have the ability to put in whatever label you want. So if you want to do 23-24, if you want to, put whatever you'd like, you can also nest the labels together. So if you created a 23-24 label, and then underneath 23-24, you want to do something like payroll and keep messages regarding payroll or benefits, you could then say, I want to nest this underneath that top label. So you would select 23-24. So if this was, for example, payroll, you could nest this underneath the label. You can choose this and then choose that 23-24. Does that make sense? Right? Once you've created the labels, you will see the list of labels over here on the left-hand side, and you can see I've used a variety of different labels. This is what a nested label looks like here. This purchasing label right here has a Kathleen label underneath it. And so it's nested right here. And then to apply a label to your message, you could simply select a message, and then up here you'll see two options. You'll see a move to, and you'll see a labels option. If you choose this labels option, you can select any of those labels that you would like. I'm going to move this out of the way. Right up here, you'll actually notice that this message has a label of inbox, which tells Gmail that that should appear in my inbox. If I apply an additional label to it, so if I come here and click this, and I apply an additional label, and I'm just going to call it Colin, for example, you'll see that it adds a second label. What that tells me is it's going to appear under my Colin label, but it's also going to appear under my inbox label. Does that make sense? So it's going to appear in both locations. You may want that, you may not want that. I tend to think that that's a little bit more confusing. To remove a label, you can just click on the X here in the corner. That'll remove the label from here. I tend to think that that's a little bit more confusing. I tend to not use this button to apply labels. I tend to use this move to. And what move to is going to do is a little bit more of what we are used to experiencing with these. Is this going to move it into a label, but then take it out of your inbox, right? It's going to move it into that singular location. So if I were to move this to Colin, for example, you'll see that it popped out of my inbox. It's not taking that inbox label and adding the Colin label. It's removing the inbox label and just marking it as Colin, right? If I come back in here and I look in there, I can move that message back. And so I can manage my mail this way. I promised you that I was going to add some additional information to this, so it's not just repetitive from our last presentation. And so one of the things that was kind of cool as I went through this, and I haven't done this myself. You can see I'm pretty bland, pretty vanilla. But you can color code your labels. Gives you a little bit more of a visual effect, helps you see those a little bit easier. And so if I come in here and I go back to my inbox, one of the things that was kind of cool is underneath these labels, there are these three dots over on the right-hand side. If you click these three dots, you can come up here and you can apply a label color, and then you can color code some of your labels. You can actually also organize your labels and move them around. But doing that color coding might be something that helps you in terms of being able to identify those labels relatively quickly. So you can see here I marked it as red. It changes that label tag to red.
If we've moved messages for labels, when I search in mail, or it will search all my label ones, not just.
It will. So that's a great question. The question was, and I'm just repeating this for the entire room as well as the video. The question is when I move things into labels and then I try to come back and search in my email for that message, will it search all the labels or will it only search the inbox? And it will search all the labels. There is a caveat there. It does not search your trash. So I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Your items in your trash only stay there for about 30 days before that gets purged. We retain your email records for 6 years. So if you have deleted something and you do need to go back and say, uh-oh, I accidentally deleted it, it's now past 30 days, we can recover it for you, right? Anything past 6 years gets automatically removed from your email, right? So I just want to repeat that one time because it is interesting. We have a lot of our staff, and we're so appreciative of all of you. We have a lot of staff that have been here for a long time, right? And I picked on you last time, Andy. I'm not going to pick on you this time. But we have a lot of staff that have been here for a long time, and they might be going, man, like I've been, where's my emails from 2012, right? The reality is if we kept your emails from 2012, when we get a public records request, we have to provide those emails from 2012. It's very time intensive. It can be very difficult to do. And so once we've reached past that public records retention period, we purge all those messages, right? We say, okay, we don't need these anymore. Does that make sense? Right? So if you're looking for messages that are beyond 6 years old, you're not going to find them. I'm not going to find them. We get rid of them, right? But if you delete something, it's there for 30 days. After that 30 days, if you want to recover it, reach out to our tech team. We can recover those messages for you. You don't have to file a public records request. Just ask us and we'll give them back to you. Okay? But then, Janelle, your question. Yes.
You answered it.
Yeah. So it will search. One thing that I did want to mention in here, just talking about, some new different things that we could talk about is, and I think we talked a little bit about this last time, is this search utility, right? So Gmail is sort of like that's where they cut their teeth, was on doing searches, right? They have a lot of information in there that you can type in to help refine your searches. You can say, in a folder called colon, and it will only search that label, right? Or you can say in my handled, right? And it'll only search that label. Or what you can do is if you click this little icon over here to see the search options, it actually gives you a number of options that you can go through and type in to say, you know what, I want it to be, from this person or to this person, subject has this words, has these words, doesn't have these words, whether or not it has an attachment. I use that quite a bit for POs, invoices, payments, other things like that, spreadsheets. You can use that in here. And then you can use the search down here to say, I only want to search within a certain label. Does that make sense? Okay. The next piece that I wanted to mention in here is the filters, right? So Gmail labels, I said this last time, I didn't update that slide. We'll go to the next one to talk about creating a filter. So what a filter does is Gmail has the ability to automatically file messages within certain labels, right? So if you created a label that are, let's just call it iReady Diagnostics, right? Maybe you're getting a regular report from iReady kind of showing where your students' progress is. It's always going to come from a particular email address. It's going to be formatted a certain way. You can create a filter that says anytime that I receive a message like this, perform some action on it. Put it within a label, send an automatic reply, mark it as important, mark it as read, delete it. You can do a bunch of other things. And so as we think about filters, you have the ability to create filters. We'll talk about kind of how to do that, right? And then also have the slide deck that can talk about, some of the things that you might want to do with filters in here. So as we think about filters, if I come back to my email here, if I open up this search criteria, and I'm going to use Logan, for example, if I type in Logan's name, and I want to create a filter for him that says anytime I receive an email from Logan, I want to put it inside a Logan folder, right? Or a Logan label. I can put in whatever parameters I'd like. I can then search. And now it's going to show me all emails that I received from Logan. If I come back in here, I have this button to create a filter. If I click create filter, it's then going to give me options that I can do with those types of messages. Right? And again, you can do things like skip the inbox and archive it. When you archive it, it's not deleting it, but it's basically just putting it off into the nether where you're not going to see it anymore. Right? It's still in there. You'll see a label in here called all mail. All mail includes your archive, so it's not in the trash. Right? That's one difference in there. You can mark them as read. You can star them. You can apply a label to them. So I could, have a Logan filter, and I can always move it in the Logan filter. I actually did this. I think I shared this in January, in the January training. I did this with my daughter. She's an 8th grader in the Auburn School District. They use Google Classroom and their middle school. And so she will get emails when teachers post assignments, when they grade assignments, when they send messages and other things like that. And she just didn't have the executive functioning skills to be able to keep track of all those messages. I went in there, she had something like 800 messages from her time in the Auburn School District, and she has no clue. And I'd ask her, whether or not a teacher, graded her assignment. She has, no clue. And then we go in her email, and there's a message from the teacher with some feedback and some notes and some other things like that she just completely missed out on. And so what we did is we created a filter for each one of her classes. And then what I basically did is said, hey, anytime you get an email that has the word biology in it, right, or other things like that, it gets automatically put within that folder, right? That way, when I'm working with her, she goes over to her labels. She goes, okay, I can click on biology, and then these are all the messages from that Google Classroom, from my teacher, other things like that. They get all automatically placed in there. helped her out just a little bit in being able to keep track of those communications. So in here, if we are creating a filter, we have the ability to apply a label to it. I can automatically forward it to someone else, right? I can delete it. I can say it's super important. I never want to send it to spam. I can do a automatic response. So we'll talk about templates a little bit later, but you can apply a send template to it. You can mark it as important. You can categorize it. We can talk a little bit about categories. And then it tells me down here that I can also apply this filter to 27 other media, right? So when you create a filter, one of the things it gives you the option to do is to say, I want to create this filter, but only apply it to messages that I receive from now on, right? That's the default. Or you can go in here and you can check this box and say, I want to apply it from now on, but those 27 messages that I received from Logan already, please also move that into, apply whatever I'd like to do here, right? Star that or put it into this filter, right? One other thing that I'll show you here is once you create the filters, if you go to this gear here on the top right, that's our settings. That's where you can manage filters that you've created. And so if you click on this settings, and I'm just going to keep moving stuff out of the way, there is the see all settings. And then right here, you have filters and blocked addresses. And you can see some of the filters that I've created here. Orion, for example, is a service that we utilize that actually tells us anytime that a switch goes down, anytime that an access point goes down, alerts that we have on some of our servers and network switches. And so every time we had a power outage, I would get about 300 emails from Orion, right? We get a lot of power outages across the district. And it was literally every switch, every access point across all of our schools. Power would go out across 3 schools and I'd get flooded with emails. And then when the power came back on, I'd get another flood of emails telling me that, they're back up. And so I have a label that we've applied to Orion to say, great, put all those in a message. And then what'll happen is it'll give me a little number here. You can see that here next to my handle. It'll give me a little number. And those are my unread messages within that filter. And so when something happens, I can look at my Orion folder and I can see, oh my goodness, there's 400 messages, something happened. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to see what happened. Does that make sense? Okay.
How would you know that if it wasn't in your regular inbox?
With the messages, like how would I know that there's new messages being filed there? So it's going to show up in this number. So when you do, have a filter placed, right, you are telling it to skip your inbox, right? Or you're potentially telling it to skip your inbox. And so you're really looking at this count here and looking there. Does that make sense? Right? Other things that, I could show you here with that, because Mary Jo, you bring up a great point. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go back inbox. And if I click here, under the quick settings, so if I just put the gear here, you have the ability to change certain aspects of your inbox. One of the things that you can do, as you think about that is, so if I scroll down, it has this inbox type field, right? So one of the things that you can do is you can say, show me all my important messages first, right? So one way that you can use a filter is messages that you find are important. You can create a filter for those. You can mark them as important. And then if you use this type of inbox, the important first, it's always going to put those important messages at the very top, just to bring them to your attention, quickly. You can do things like unread messages first. Generally, my inbox is marked from in chronological order, so all the newest messages come to the top, right? But there could be unread messages that are further down. This will actually group all my unread messages together. If you want to do that, so there is their ability to do this, and then you can also do what's called the multiple inboxes in here. And some of you may have this enabled as well. Google will automatically determine whether or not you're receiving advertisements, right? Like solicitations and other things like that. It'll put those in a separate area, different things like that. So you can choose different inbox that tend to work best for you, right? The other thing that I like to show in here, you're okay, fine. No worries. See, that's what happens when you come in late. You got a seat right up front. The other thing that I always like to show everyone, people as I go through inbox here is one, in here with the reading pane, if I do a no split and I close this, what ends up happening is it gives me a lot of space here to see my messages. But in order to actually see what's in the message, I have to click on it and then it opens up the message and it takes up the entire view. If I want to go to the next message or the previous message, or I want to go back through there, I've got to use these little arrows that are up here to go back through my messages, or I can click here to go a little bit newer. And so what I like showing people is, and that's the default, is not having a split. I like showing people about this split. I like putting it to the right of the inbox, but you can also do it below your inbox. But when you do it to the right of your inbox, it actually gives you a little preview pane so that you can quickly click through messages, see what's going on, but then also come over here and view the message really quick. Okay. Last thing that I wanted to show in there was around the conversation view. I don't know if any of you are familiar with conversation view, but both Office 365 and Google will do this thing where if an email is part of a thread, right? So for example, you might send a principal might send a message out to their entire staff, and then 4 or 5 people will respond. It will group all those messages together, even though they're responding at different times. And then when you put it into a conversation view like that, you actually have to click this arrow to expand the conversation and see the replies. I'll turn my conversation view on here, and we'll see if I can find a message that makes sense. Oh, yeah, I don't mean to pick on you on this, but I'm going to pull up your message because it's showing me that I've got a conversation view here, right? But here is conversation view enabled. And basically what it's telling me is the items that are in bold here, it's telling me that there's a new message within that conversation. It's also giving me a number 3, which tells me that there's 3 messages in that conversation. So rather than seeing them as 3 separate line items, I can click on this, and this is the conversation view over here on the right hand side, where it's showing kind of the message that we went through. It puts it all within one thread, which is kind of nice. But to me, it can also obscure messages. Does that make sense? Right? And so you can click on any one of these and see each individual message, or you can close them and just see the entire thread. But that's conversation view. Right? You can enable or disable that by selecting this box. It's going to have you reload. Okay. So we were really talking about filters and kind of going through, creating filters. One of the things that I mentioned is, as we share out the slide deck, there is a lot of ways that you might utilize filters, within a school organization. To make it a little bit more interactive, I'm just going to ask anyone, has anyone created a filter since that January 22nd training? Love it. What filter did you create?
Alarm. SYLR.
Okay, so a Lake Ridge school year. I think I saw another hand there.
School bus conduct report.
Okay, all right. Conduct reports, right? Are you marking those important, or are you just deleting those? Yeah. Totally. Did I see a hand back there for a filter?
And cabinet meetings.
Okay. A cabinet meeting, for example, right? So Amanda, you might be responsible for helping to get people together, creating that agenda, kind of going through that. And so those are things that you need to be able to find readily, quickly, right? So you created a filter for your cabinet meetings. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, it's all right. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's lots of ways that you might want to create a filter. Amanda just kind of mentioned this around cabinet meetings, applying a label to meeting invitations, different things like that. I think I shared this last time with meeting invitations. When we were in Red Remote and COVID, we were doing tons of meetings, right? And you send out meeting invitations, and then people hit yes, and it sends you a message back saying so and so accepted the meeting invitation, and it got really really annoying, really quick. And so you can do things like in a meeting invitation, if someone says yes, you can do things like automatically delete it. Like I don't need to see that they've confirmed. I only need to see if they've denied my meeting request, right? Or other things like that. And so with a lot of our leadership team and others, we sent out some tech tips that said, hey, here's how you can avoid getting back, large numbers of people clicking yes on that meeting request. And we still get the meetings things when they decline, right? But we just won't see them when they click yes. Was that a question? Nope.
Oh, no, I was thinking potential precedent.
You can't. So like when you're invited to a meeting through Zoom, you get the email.
Facilitated to not be pinged every time someone accepts.
Yes. So in your calendar, I think what you're talking about, if I'm hearing you correctly, the question was, is there a way to suppress kind of like Zoom notifications and other things like that? Absolutely. Whenever someone invites you to a Zoom meeting, right? That comes from a particular email address with a particular subject. And so you could create a filter based on that and say, great, every time I get a Zoom meeting request, you can either, mark it into a filter, you can suppress it, like I said, by marking it as red or by deleting it, or other things like that. Generally, when you get that Zoom meeting request, it's tied to a calendar invite, so it appears on your calendar as well. So that's another way that you can use that. Did that answer? Was that what you were talking about?
But I think if you're the one in Zoom creating the meeting, I think you can suppress getting answers from everybody.
100%. Okay, so I see what you're saying. When you're creating that calendar invite, and whether it's a Zoom meeting or whether it's an in-person meeting, when you add your guest list and you click save, a little window pops up and says, hey, would you like to send a invitation to everyone? You do not have to click yes. You can hit cancel and it won't send the message. Is that what you're talking about?
Then how do they know?
It'll still pop up on their calendar.
Oh.
It just won't send them the email notification. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. We talked a little bit about this last time, but it was the undo send functionality within here. This actually just came up twice within the last month or so. I had staff members reach out to me to say, can we pull back messages? I'm not going to call anyone out. I'm not going to share particular details, but it does come up frequently. When we had first class, and some of you may remember first class, and it was probably around 2011, 2012. Really old email client that we utilized. It was a Canadian-based company. That was a very interesting. January 22nd was also a holiday because there was people dressed up on January. What was January 22nd? There was something going on January 22nd, but I love it. Welcome, Scott. Okay. With first class, it was a very, very unusual email client that gave us the ability, even like days after we sent the message, to go in and say, hey, remove this from a person's mailbox. And you didn't have to reach out to IT. It was just like within first class. You could recall the message, right? Like anyone could do it. And as long as they didn't open it, it would pull the message back. Really, really interesting. Now that we're using web-based mail clients and things like that, we really don't have that same feature and functionality. Gmail does give you the ability to enable a undo send for 30 seconds. What it basically does, just out of full transparency, it'll just delay sending the message for 60 seconds and give you the ability to, or for 30 seconds and give you the ability to hit cancel, right? It only pops up for a brief period of time. And so for a lot of people, they'll even see that pop up, say, nope, I'm good. And then realize, oh, geez, I had a typo or I spelled something. I put the wrong date, and then not be able to resend it. So we'll talk a little bit about this, but I did also want to share, as much as I say that, first class gives the ability to do the undo send and Gmail doesn't, we actually have a tool now on the IT side that gives us the ability to remove messages from staff mailboxes. And I'll give you an example of where we use that, phishing attempts. So schools are targeted with phishing attempts as part of our security suite and tool set there. But schools are targeted with phishing attempts, and we get an email from someone that's pretending to be Superintendent Rendell They're sending us a, from an AOL address or whatever it is, and they're saying, hey, human resources person, please send $1 million to Zimbabwe, whatever it is, right? And it goes out to a bunch of people, and we have the ability, because our staff are so good about going through and telling us when they get these fishy emails, right? They'll let us know, and they'll say, hey, just let you know, we got another one here. We can run a report on our side to say, okay, let's look across all of our mailboxes and see who received it and remove it from your mailbox, right? Even if you've opened it, we can just say, move it to trash. We can report it as spam. We can do other things like that. And so one example that happened is a staff member inadvertently shared a photo of a kiddo that I think was on a no photo list, right? They reached out to us and said, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to share this photo out with staff and other things like that. Can you please remove this message from staff mailboxes? 100%, right? Hopefully it's not, someone being disgruntled and they just send an angry message and, asking us to take it out, but we do have that ability. Unfortunately, you do not have that ability. You have to reach out to our IT team in order to do that, but we do have that ability, but we can only do it for internal mailboxes. So it's messages sent to students, messages sent to staff, right? We can't remove it from a parent's mailbox. Does that make sense? Okay.
A window of time for that?
For a parent mailbox?
No, for the internal, like. Yeah.
No window of time. No window of time, right? One thing I will say, emails, our staff are always kind of on their emails and other things like that. I think it was around November where one of our staff members did actually fall for a phishing attempt, right? And we had some messages that went out about a cybersecurity breach, passwords were being compromised. It was a pretty serious process that we had there. I can tell you that message came in about 5 p.m. I was in Puyallup at my daughter's select softball tournament. I was sitting there on my computer working. Within 15 minutes, I started removing it from mailboxes, and there was still probably about 30 staff members that opened the message within that 15 minutes, right? So, as much as we say we're going to try to go as quickly as possible to remove that, the messages do get out there, right? It's got like the internet. It's hard to pull it back, hard to put the cat back in the bag, right? So if you would like to use the undo send feature in here, you do have a short period of time to cancel it. You can retract it. And in order to do that, you would go into your Gmail. In the top right, you can click settings. You can see all settings. There's an undo send here. I'm going to show you how to do that in here. But one of the things that I do want to mention in here as well is there is a link to iPad instructions and how you can enable that within your iPad. Logan was gathering email addresses for me to share the slide deck back out with all of you, because that's something that I missed on the January 22nd training. But this is available here in iPad as well. And in order to do the undo send feature, if you go to settings and you go to see all settings, right here, you'll see a number of options that are available for you just under the general settings. And one of the things that you'll see, I know it's in here, undo send. There it is, right there. So you can do the undo send. You can set a cancellation period of up to 30 seconds. 30 seconds isn't a very long time, but you do have that ability to set it up to 30 seconds. One thing to keep in mind is it's going to delay your message for 30 seconds. So one of the things that I hear from people sometimes is like, well, I'm standing right next to this person. I sent them the agenda. Why are they not getting it? If you have that undo send on, it's going to wait 30 seconds before it even tries sending it to them. Then it goes into the Gmail, mail servers, and it comes down. And so that's where you might see a delay of a minute before a person sees the message, right? We're artificially introducing a 30-second delay just right off the bat. Does that make sense? Okay. I know, when we talked about this in January 22nd, some of you really thought that the scheduled send was kind of a cool thing. Gmail added the ability so that we can schedule your emails to send at a later time. They can be sent a few minutes after the scheduled time is what it says. But basically, you can say, I want to compose my message now, but I want it to go out at 3 p.m. For example, if I had your email addresses ahead of time, I wanted to make sure I caught everyone. I know many of you RSVP'd, but I also knew that there was going to be some people who came in without RSVPing. If I had all of your email addresses, I could have scheduled send the exit interview to automatically go out to you at 4 p.m. That way, when I'm in my workshop and I'm teaching, I don't have to necessarily come over here and say, okay, I've got to stop really quick because I've got to send out the exit interview. I could have had that pre-prepared, ready to go out. So at the end of the day, I can just say, hey, you know what? By the time you leave today, you're going to see a survey for an exit interview. You are going to see a survey for an exit interview, or exit ticket. But I can do that ahead of time. There are things that you can do. I use scheduled send as reminders as well. So towards the end of the year is when a lot of our instructional tech coaches and myself have conversations around software renewals for next year, right? We'll always get quotes for the following year and other things like that. And there might be times when we say, hey, we want to look at analytics to see how much we're using this application, because maybe it's really expensive and we have a few other alternatives. And we want to make sure that we're getting our money's worth out of an application. I might get that. Our vendors love for me to sign up early and give them money early, right? So it may not be due for renewal until June. They'll send me a message in January saying, hey, here's some analytics data and your renewal quote, right? We may not be ready to talk about it until April. And so I can take that January message, I can schedule send it back to the team. In April, it'll automatically pop up. You can also do a snooze. I'll show you guys snoozing messages. That's pretty cool. Has anyone used the scheduled send? Beth?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
I sent digital birthday cards to all of our students. And so I was able to sit down recently at the beginning of the month and do all of my kids for this month. And so I don't forget. And, if they have a weekend birthday or whatever, I don't forget. So that's worked out really well.
So that's actually a really cool thing. One of the things that we talk about is our fundamentals, our values, our beliefs. And one of the beliefs that we have is belonging, right? That we talk about. And we talk about how our staff make connections with our kids. And here's an example of a personalized birthday note that is sent to our students, where you don't have to be worried about, like, well, what if I'm not there that day? What if I forget? Other things like that. You can sit down and say, I'm going to get this done, set up a scheduled send. And then those kids, I'm sure, are really, really appreciative, because I know how much of a connection you have with all of them.
Yeah, it's been
Right? Is a great way that we can use our technology tools to help move a lot of our priorities and values. Right? That's super powerful. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
So when you do that, are you able to send like pictures, like if you screenshot a happy birthday, blah, blah, blah? So we can send stuff like that to students? I didn't even know we could do that.
I created the card on Canva.
Yep.
You can do some, really fun things for that.
Quick note, we have a Canva workshop later today. If anyone has a chance
It's really fun.
to check that, you'll be able to go to a Canva workshop.
Elementary students have an inbox with the ability to navigate email.
Not at the elementary levels. Our middle school through our high school do. We added calendar to our middle school kids because of Google Classroom assignments, but we did not add email to the elementaries. Yeah, that's a good point. Great question. I'm gonna put I think it may have been Amanda on the spot here. After the January 22nd training, she asked me about the ability to send reoccurring messages, right? Is that right? So we talked about the scheduled send, and we can say, hey, you can schedule it to say it's going to go out at this time. But she wanted an opportunity to be able to say, I want a message to go out every month as a reminder, every week, right? That functionality is not in Google currently. However, there's an add-on called Boomerang. And did it work for you? Okay. So just so you know, if you would like something to say, in this particular example, you're sending a single message at a given point in time. Scheduled send makes absolute sense, right? But you might also have a need to say, every week, I need to be able to send a schedule, right? Or every week, I want to send a progress report, or every month, or different things like that. Maybe reminders for, things that you need to do. There are a lot of add-ons that you can add to our Google product, like Boomerang. That one's called Boomerang, like a boomerang. Not the social media app, right? But that will send multiple messages. Okay. If I come back here and I do look at scheduled send, and I go in here, when I compose a message, I can type a message to Logan, right? And underneath this send option, if I click that up arrow, I have the ability to do a scheduled send. And so that's how I would choose when to send this message. It gives you a couple options. You can pick a date and time. You know, you can do whatever you want there. You can attach, you can have links, you can have emojis, you can link to drive files, you can do quite a bit in there. But it's right there in the arrow next to the send button. While we're talking about scheduled send, another thing that is not in my slide deck that I like showing people that is relatively new, that's kind of cool, is the ability to snooze messages. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go back to my inbox. And I'll take Aaron's message here about a public records request. Is there more seats? There's some more seats. There's a couple of them. Yeah. Keep your seats, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things that you have the ability to do is you might not be ready to address a message right now, right? I can't stand a bunch of items in my inbox. I try to go through them as much as I can. I still end up with 100+ messages in my inbox. But right here next to your message is this little clock that says snooze. And if I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, great, I've read the message, I know about it, but really that's something I'm going to address next week, right? I can click snooze, and if I snooze the message, it's going to disappear from my inbox, and I can choose when I want it to pop right back up, right? Just a quick way to send a little reminder to yourself. I've been using that quite a bit, and so that's a nice feature that we've been utilizing. Hey, Logan, can you reach out to either the tech team or if you can check? I just want to make sure that Giovanna knows that we're up here in the 400 hall, right? Whenever she's ready. She might actually be up here, but I'm here, but the doors are locked. Logan, the doors are locked. Love it. See, technology is awesome. It's right here.
Oh.
Right here under your snooze. So check this out. I've got a bunch of messages that I've snoozed. They will.
Okay. As long as I have.
They will. One thing is, if you snooze a message, anytime that you see a date range like this, that is telling you that the message is snoozed. Unlock the doors? No. She sent me a message. She's here, but the doors are locked. Did it say those sent? Yeah, this is her right here. As soon as I sent it, she said to hang out and said that she's locked out. Did that make sense what I just said about the snooze message? Right? So if I take charms, for example, so we're gonna, one thing that I was gonna mention here in the search, when I clicked on this label, snoozed, one thing that Google does right away is it puts in a search parameter and it says in snooze, right? If I come back in here and I get rid of that, and I just search for charms, for example, it'll show me a bunch of messages, and then these two messages right here have been snoozed, and it's just telling me, hey, it's gonna pop back up on March 18th. Does that make sense? Okay. Questions on snoozing, undo send? Okay. Gmail templates. Before we get into Gmail templates, one of the things that I was going to add to this slideshow as I was, kind of getting ready for this, is the Smart Compose feature. Some of you may have started seeing that in your Gmail, but it is now able to complete some of your sentences, right? So it'll go through and it'll recognize things that you're putting, and it'll give you suggestions for how to complete. Have you guys seen that? Okay, so bear with me because right here. I was, kind of going through here, just kind of saying, hey, like, what are the things that I want to show someone? Similar to a email template, Gmail has the ability to do some smart composing. In here, if you go under your settings, under your general tab, you can turn on features like Smart Compose, but I'll show you what that Smart Compose might look like. So if I hit reply, one thing, so a Smart Compose is, it already recognizes that this message is from Aaron. So like Smart Compose puts that response in here and says, okay, if I want to say Aaron, I just have to hit tab and it's put that message in there. Let's see, thanks for the review. So there's an example of a Smart Compose, right? I just started saying thanks, and it says, oh, are you hoping to say thanks for the update, other things like that. That's a very simple example of a Smart Compose, but that's what Smart Compose is it will look at as you're typing, try and identify, kind of what you're saying and help complete those sentences for you so that you don't have to type everything out. If I did want to say thanks for the update, I will take care of this on. Okay, it doesn't know what I'm saying. Thought I was gonna try to finish that for me, but nope. So that is the Smart Compose feature. The other piece that I wanted to show you was an email template, right? So Smart Compose is kind of cool because it saves us a little bit of time. Email templates can save us a lot of time. And what an email template is if I am sending similar information or similar responses back, I can actually create a template so that when I get a message, I can just say, hey, I've already got a template for this. I'm going to apply this template, modify it, and send it out, right? So if I get rid of this in here, I believe it's under these three dots right over here. There are these templates that I can create. If I hover over to templates, you can see templates that I've created. So for example, on a student withdrawal notice, Skyward will automatically send us a message that says a student's withdrawn, right? And I was sending messages to parents saying, hey, can you please make sure that you return your technology, yada, yada, yada. And I was spending a lot of time kind of typing out these individual messages. And then I realized I should really just create a template. So in here, I created a student withdrawal notice template. If I apply that template, it's going to automatically say, hey, we received a notice your student withdrawn from our school district. Our record shows that the student still has their MIC laptop and several textbooks. Please return these items as soon as possible. Please note that returning these items, yada, yada, yada. But that way I don't have to type out that message every single time. I can just apply that template. I can modify that. I can change sender, the senders on here. I can put the parent email addresses. I can make some modifications in there, but it allows me to just have a bulk sort of canned response in there. And you can see a few others that, I've created within here. In order to create a template, right? All you have to do is just start composing a message. And then if you say, hey, this is a message that I send frequently, I'd like to create a template. Before you send it, go to these three dots and save the draft as a template. Right? So if you come here, you can save draft as template, and then you can save as a new template, or you can update these in here. And you can see I need to be better about going through these, but like, employment reference checks or other things like that. There's canned messages that I send out to employers that are listed as references for people that have applied for tech positions. And so I have a canned message to say, can you help me, create complete an employment reference check? Okay, I'm going to pause. Any questions there? Any thoughts? Go on.
Not specifically on that, you introduce a lot of information. Can we learn going through the slides and try things out and time part those hours? Because you introduce a lot of information. There's no way I can remember all that.
Sure. So one of the things that I mentioned here is some of the stuff that you are hearing here is a repeat from January 22nd. And that's primarily because there was a lot of information that was shared on January 22nd. I will freely admit it was done sort of in a short period of time, right? So I did want to repeat what was shared earlier. I do think that there's some tools here that will be beneficial for you. I'm going to share the slides out with you. But the question really is now that I have this training and I have these slides and other things like that, can I spend some time going through utilizing these tools and can I time card for that? The answer is yes, right? The clarifying piece on there is really around the 2 times hours, right? So the 2 times hours are very specific in regards to these trainings. You guys have access to 26 technology training hours. Through the 2 times hours, you can earn up to 16 total hours, but you still have 10 additional hours of technology training. With those 10 additional hours of technology training, you can access things like atomic learning and who knew it or other things like that. Or you can say, our site tech leads, lead trainings in the morning, and is Anna Mleczynski in the room? Is Anna here? Ah, there's Anna. I see so many timesheets from you for all of your Trek trainings, for Julie and Karen going through that. Those are always opportunities to be able to utilize your additional 10 hours. But then you can also say, hey, I went to a training, right? Like this. And I just spent an hour just kind of going back through and actually applying it. Try and put that in there because I do want to keep documentation of, kind of what you're doing, right? If you just put like on a timesheet, if you just put training, some of you may have received this message from me. I just kind of reach out to you and say, hey, I saw this timesheet that was submitted on this date for 1 hour. It just says training. Can you provide me with some additional information? What was the training? That way I have an email record of, if anyone comes back to me and says, well, what was this? I can show it to them. But yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to spend some time after the fact, reviewing these slides and going through the training, you can absolutely time card for that. Unfortunately, it just won't be at that 2 times hour. Does that make sense? Mary Jo?
Where would that be hours that are in addition to your normal hours?
Correct. So all of your technology training hours are all time carded in addition to your normal hours. In addition, right? So I know that there's a few people that came in here, after the fact. I was talking a little bit about kind of how this day works. You're going to receive 4 hours of training today. At the end of the day, you're going to submit a timesheet. You're going to put in that time, and then you're going to put 2 times hours, right? You're going to submit 4 hours. We will pay you at double time, right? You don't have to submit 8 hours. You'll submit those 4 hours. The piece that I was clarifying here, and we'll start hitting out these timesheets here as we transition over to Giovanna to make sure that you guys get signed in. I'll also send you the slide deck here. You have an opportunity to sign up for 4 clock hours. Clock hours are different than your paid hours, right? Those are for your parent certificate. So if you are interested in earning clock hours, I'm going to have you sign this sheet. I'm going to see if I can get you clock hours for those that haven't registered yet. And then the other aspect of that is there's this flex time, right? Just for today, this specific day, for those that came in a bit late, if your normal workday extends beyond that school release time, Aaron Battersby sent out an email to say, okay, you have the option of going home, right? With the expectation that you're going to flex those hours and complete safe schools trainings and other things like that. So just note, technology training hours are always in addition to your hours, right? You can do technology training as part of your regular workday if you have that opportunity, right? Like many of you are regular students, right? So let's face it, you're not going to stop and do technology training as part of your workday. But if you have that opportunity, you can absolutely do technology training as part of your workday, right? You're being paid for that time as you would submit tech hours, right? But most of the time, your tech hours are being done outside of your normal workday, and you're always submitting timesheets for those.
Also, you can do tech hours over the summer, up until I think August 10th.
August 10th.
So I think keep that in mind.
August 10th. August 10th is that cutoff, right? So new school year usually starts August 30th or something like that. You just have to submit it by that August 10th timesheet. So you still have access to those hours, right?
Don't roll over.
They do not roll over from year to year. They're use or lose. One key differentiation that I always like to point out, you have optional training hours and you have technology hours. They can be very confusing. You have 24 optional training hours that are not tied to technology. They're paid from a different pot, right? So as you think about we used to, so safe schools, for example, there are frequently times when people will send me technology training timesheets for safe schools. And I got to respond back to them and say, no, that's actually your optional training hours, right? Not your technology training hours, right? But we used to do right response. We don't do right response anymore, right? That kind of went away this year.
You do.
We do right response still? Only certain people. Right response training, there's transportation training, there's all sorts of training that you guys are engaged in, CPR training, other things like that, that may not necessarily be related to technology. Those are all under your optional training hours, right? And then your technology hours are really for technology training. They don't necessarily have to always be this, right? They don't have to always necessarily be who knew it or atomic learning. It could be we're rolling out cumulative, for example, right? And it could be, yeah, I need training on cumulative. Cumulative is one of our tech tools, absolutely, right? And whether that was iReady, benchmark, other things like that, if you're involved in that process, there's a digital component to those assessments. If you're receiving training for those, you can time card those. Generally, it's talking with their supervisor ahead of time and just saying, hey, I'm trying to spend time doing this. Our registrars have gone through a lot of technology training as they were getting ready to use cumulative. So just wanted to mention that differentiation between optional training hours and technology training hours.
So if not in this type of setting, what type of training, where would I even go?
So
to find out that-
options for technology training is what you're asking? Okay, so we do training like this, right? So this is one option. Your buildings actually also host open labs, and your site tech leads have trainings as well. So those count as technology training hours. On our instructional tech day, right? So that's usually in August. We have started inviting our classified staff to come to portions of that day. It's geared towards certificated staff, but like when we do our keynotes and other things like that, there are options there within August where you can use some of your technology training hours. There are modules within Who Knew It, right? So Who Knew It is that online service where you can go through and you can search through different things. So those are eligible for technology training hours. And then if there are other trainings that you're doing that are technology related, like I said, right? Maybe it's around iReady or Benchmark or, you know, some other service that we're utilizing like Follett. Yeah, so Follett Destiny would be one where you're going, yeah, I manage a digital database, I manage ebooks, other things like that. I've reached out to them. They're going to provide me with a 1 hour webinar that I'm attending or something like that on there. That can definitely count as technology training hours. For stuff like that, that's outside of like Who Knew It, that's where I want you to connect with your supervisor first. To just, you know, let them know that, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's the time. It's outside of my workday. I'm submitting those technology training hours. And then when you submit it, if you could put a description in the notes of what you're doing, right? Because if you just put like, if you put Follett, I'm going to have a pretty good idea of what you're talking about, right? But if you just put training, I'm going to reach back out to you and say, well, can you tell me a little bit more about that training? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Any other questions before we transition?
Yeah, you knew it. I think
Great question. So how many of you have utilized ClassLink or know what ClassLink is? Couple of you. So a couple things that I'll mention here. If you go to our website, one of the things that we've created is the staff hub. If you go in your staff hub, one of the things we want to do is just have shortcuts. When we did our website redesign, one of the things we realized was it was really cluttered. And it was primarily because we were trying to be a source of resource for our families, our parents, and our staff, right? Or even prospective families. That's a lot of information to put out there. And so one of the things that we tried doing is kind of saying, well, our website's really more geared towards our families and our students and prospective, you know, people coming in. And we wanted to create a little bit more of an intranet for our staff to be able to gather information. Not everything can be hidden behind an intranet, right? So benefits information, we want everyone to be able to access that and view that, even prospective employees. So we leave that perfect. But in the staff hub, the first link here is ClassLink. If you go to ClassLink, what that is it's a series of bookmarks and resources that are primarily geared towards our staff, right? And depending on what level you're at and you know what access you need to different applications, you might see a different set of applications. And so I apologize. Can you remind me of your name?
Emer.
Emer? Perfect.
Sorry, which tab was that on there?
So if you go on our website, if you go to Staff Hub, you'll see ClassLink. Emer, is it okay if I like pull you up here really quick? Okay. Yep. So in here, if I go to so Emer, this might be what you see when you log in.
It's a second problem. So,
Right over here, right? Couple of the things that we put in here, like so, ASOP absent management. That's where you put in your timesheets. That's where you put in your leave requests and other things like that. So there's a link directly in here. We're doing a Canva training later. When you see the little key in here, it'll actually also automatically sign you in to many of these applications because the biggest thing that we heard from staff was, you know, one, I don't know where to go, and then two, once I get there, I don't know how to log in, right? So this is in an attempt to help make it easier to figure out where to go and then also how to log in. In some of these things, we also have forms like our staff resources. So, you know, if you need to do accidents and injuries, the parent educators thing, staff handbooks, safe schools is in here, you know, a bunch of different things. notice of resignation, leaves, retirements, different HR forms. We've created some bookmarks within ClassLink. PD enroller. So we talked about clock hours for your educator certificate. PD enroller is where you go to register for those clock hours, right? So there's a link in here and just a variety of different tools and resources for you. Does that make sense, Eva?
Yeah.
Okay. So who knew it is right here. Yeah.
Same things as atomic learning.
Yes. Yep. They keep changing their name. It was info-based learning, then it was atomic learning, then info-based learning, and now it's who knew it. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. We'll transition. We're now going to move over with Giovanna. She's going to do a little cumulative Q&A. Giovanna, just one thing that will queue up. One of the things that we potentially talked about was I asked the team whether or not they did receive the 8 hours of pay for January 22nd, and someone was like, I don't even know how to tell. Like, I don't know how to look at my previous pay stubs, and so that might be something that we demonstrate.
I was right there.
Yep. Okay, so I'll let Giovanna come up here. She's gonna get connected. For those of you that want to position, it might take a little bit because she's gonna want to share her computer, so we're gonna get her set up, on the Zoom. Restrooms, if you need to take a bio break or other things like that, I think there's both the staff restrooms. There's some down in the 300 volt, or if you go right here to the intersection and turn left, you'll see restrooms right there. Okay, maybe we'll take a 7-minute break while we transition. Did I send you a link to the Zoom?
Yes. Your email or chat?
I'm gonna send it to you through chat. We locked you out, huh? Bro, can you make this easier for me? I'm gonna turn on sync. And let's put in your email address. What's my If it's on the recording.
Okay.
Here we go. I'm glad I remembered that.
Yeah.
All right, Giovanni.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I think you probably have seen an email or two from me through the district, or maybe you've seen some Skyward stuff. But everybody knows that we've been working in cumulative now for 6 months. Have we hit the 6-month mark? Since August. So while we have had a few little hiccups along the road, there has been some increased efficiencies in some of the areas of Skyward, which I welcome, I embrace as much as I can. So everybody here I know has a very unique role, but absolutely this is very, sorry, am I moving too much?
No, you're fine. Get you back in front.
So that's why I'm here, is just to answer whatever questions you may have, because I didn't want to put something together that wasn't going to be applicable to your work and your role. So one of the common questions, as Andres mentioned, is sometimes it's hard to find what you're looking for within employee access. So I will go ahead and start with that and demonstrate that piece in employee access. And then after that, it's kind of like an open session for questions. So when you log into Cumulative, yours is not going to look like that.
Bigger, I'm sorry, that's really.
Oh, make it bigger? How's that? Oh, can we move? Can we move?
So you're probably doing it online. Over here. Hold on one second.
Gotcha. Does that?
Did that help? One more? So now go, if you zoom in on yours,
I
because
did.
okay.
Do a little bit more zoom.
Yeah, so now let's just make sure that it,
I can't go any further.
oh, you can't go any further.
No.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So when you log into Cumulative, it's not going to look like this. I have been able to create some live charts and tiles with data, student data within the software. So I have not bookmarked. If you're not already aware of this, you can bookmark pages. So like employee access, you can bookmark it using the doc, which is right here. As you can see, I bookmarked quite a few pages here. So you can bookmark employee access there and have it as just kind of a one-touch place. For me, I'm going to collapse it just to give myself some real estate on the screen. But employee access, the easiest way to get to it is from the little home icon. There's a drop down. If you have more than one application, you'll get a drop down. I have all of the applications because I'm a system-wide user, but I'm going to go ahead and just click on that. And then I'm going to go to employee access. So as soon as you go to employee access, you're going to see the tiles. These are all called tiles of the information that has been released by HR. So if you're looking specifically for pay history, there's one payroll check history, and that is the tile that you would access for your payroll checks. And it's going to be just a list of all of the pay stubs that you've received. So if you wanted to actually see the details of them, you would just click on the little blue circle. Mine is not blue. Yours probably by default is blue. And then you'd be able to see the details of your pay. And then if you have any timesheets processed, you'll be able to see the timesheets as well. Hitting the home icon just brings you back to the list of tiles. So in here, you should be able to get your W-2 as well. So if you're looking for a W-2 electronically, it's going to be right here. ACA 1095 form, if you need a copy of that, it's right there. And in terms of assignments, I think the assignment information is there. That will give you the assignment, your particular assignment or assignments. And then employee profile is just your demographic information. So if you look at the information and you say, oh, this is not accurate, I need to make some changes, reach out to the HR department and they'll probably have you fill out a change of information form, and then they can make the changes for you. Any questions at all about using employee access? Yes.
So I have one too. 7 tiles.
Okay, so that's probably going to be
The second one you talked about, the 10 or the
this 1095. I would have to find out from the HR department if that's something that's not released to everybody. Like I said, because I'm system wide, I have access to everything that's available in cumulative. And some of the options may not be available to your particular account. So,
Did anyone inadvertently take some of the sign-in sheets? Like, people fill out. Try to find it, like, you can-
I actually kind of like this tile format. I definitely am a visual learner. So when I see things like this, it makes it easier for me to navigate. So I find it a little more efficient. So, question?
I don't know, knowing of a timesheet of the previous, workshop, how do I find out?
So if it's entered, it should be under timesheet. If they're using, I'm not sure if they're using cumulative to record the timesheet information. But if you don't see, I don't use timesheet, so I don't have anything here. But if you don't see anything there, reach out to either Kathleen Long or Mary Azarachny, because they'll be able to look that information up for you.
Can they look through the paycheck stuff and see if they have answer in terms of the paycheck?
Yes, you'd be able, they have access to all of that information for you.
But she can access her own paycheck stuff. and
Yes.
Figure out how many.
The paycheck, when you click on your paycheck history
Yeah.
tile, there's that little open circle. And when you click on it, you'll get to see all the details of your, and you can actually print a copy of it as well, which outlines all of the details. So. Any other employee access questions?
I'm curious about why it doesn't give you a balance, like 26 available hours.
Oh, okay.
It just shows what you tapped on, but it doesn't show you what your availability is.
We were talking about that at break. I think you may need to, I need to check with the HR department on how they're doing that allocation versus usage of those hours, because it seems a little misleading when you're looking at the information. I think they're applying it correctly, but it may not be reflected in the totals that you're seeing. So, so I can check with them, or you can, if you send an email to either Mary or Kathleen, they can explain that piece to you. So. Any questions in general about cumulative?
Can you point out again where the bookmarks, how to do those bookmarks?
So when you're in when you're in your whatever application you're working with, you should be able to expand your doc, or you'll have this little icon. I expanded it just now, and there should be an add to doc button available. For me, I already have it, so it's not showing up.
Oh, so just click on doc and doc.
It should, yeah, you should have like an add to doc if it lets you do the add to doc part.
Okay.
It's just like when you're in a web browser, when you click on the little star and it adds it to your bookmarks. Yep. Other questions? Yes.
I wondered, since we have all the classified nurses in here today, is it possible to go over medication, running a report for medication account? We have to get that to Shelley soon.
Medication count. Let me see. I have not done that yet. I will select a school. All the health reports that you'd have access to are within the health section. So if you go into administrative access and you see menu, the little 3 bars, that's your menu option. And then if you have access to that, you would see a health option, a health tab on the left. Do you see that?
Yeah, I just don't know where, like, we have to say how many EpiPens we've given, how many inhaler doses we've given, and none of us know how to find them. And it doesn't tell you the medication count, it just lists each student.
Yeah.
Um. I will need to do some exploring on that. Let me, what is your name?
Rachel?
Rachel. I know Rachel. I just couldn't see. Okay, so I will get back to you. If there isn't a report there that works the way that you're expecting it to, I can create one and then share it with all the nurses, and then you'll be able to see.
And I can go into that assessment to see what she needs from us and send that out, like what exactly it is. We need to see.
Okay,
So what we need to run a report on so that you have all that.
okay, that sounds good. How many in here have other applications other than employee access and cumulative? You have attendance, okay. So just a few of you, okay. Any questions at all about accessing those applications?
You're just taking random questions.
I'm taking random questions, yeah.
There's times when I need to not look at the student schedule, but a teacher's schedule. Is there a way to do that?
There is through the staff option. Do you have the staff option?
Is that on my home screen?
It would be on the menu. So you, again, when you click on the menu, there should be a staff tab on the left. If not, I can certainly give you.
Oh, yeah.
So if you click on staff, yep, perfect. So you just click on staff profile or staff list, either one, to look up your teacher. And if I go to, I'm just going to pick a.
Oh, no, I go to schedule.
And then you go, yes, there's a schedule.
I see.
And then schedule list or schedule matrix. And I'm on someone that doesn't have classes. So network admin does not have classes. Good question. No, elementary as well. Yeah. You don't have staff?
Teacher and if I go to that staff button.
No, you would go to administrative access.
I don't have it.
Okay, so this is for users that have administrative access. So they have the office version of Skyward. So if that's something that you need, have the administrator reach out to me and I can give you access. We typically don't give administrator access unless, yeah, it's part of the tasks that you're working on.
Scheduling on one of our teachers, and it gives me scheduled list, but it's not scheduling. So under scheduling,
Let's see if I can find someone. Okay. So you're not seeing this?
if I click on scheduling, I am not seeing that.
I clicked on schedule list
Okay, schedule.
down here, and it's giving me periods here, the first column, and then all of the classes.
Well, I can't.
Who is the person that you're looking at?
I got Rigby here. We're just gonna try.
Well, Rigby has a lot of online classes, so those are going to take a lot of space.
In the different teachers.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, good. The other thing you can do, Bev, is you can always go into here, the little cog, and just remove under period. You can remove period 0. So if you go into selection, you can just click on all of the display periods. And so then you wouldn't be getting, well, this one is showing me.
Okay.
Hey, not everyone, I'm trying to listen to a question. Okay, so say that again. I'd like to kind of pull up a student.
We have some students that are potentially missing class. And I don't have them in this class. I want to monitor it. Is there a way I can do something so there's my dashboard versus having to go into each individual?
So within teacher access, you're asking teacher access? Let me, can you give me the name of a teacher? This one? Right, right. But because you don't have administrative access, I want to try to figure out a way to do it in teacher access.
Yeah.
So, so within teacher access, you should have an attendance. And then there's attendance totals for students. And if you're looking for a particular range, date range, and then the class you can select, because he has a lot of classes. So whichever classes you're looking for, and then you would run a report. So, and I just put in the,
If they're making it to class sometime in the high school class or not.
okay, so then you would need administrator access. Because you can't access students that you're not associated with in the teacher access area. You're only gonna see kids that you're associated with, like with the teacher. So if they're not associated with your class.
See, by going to individual schools, I can see their attendance.
Right, but that's students that have that teacher, right? Which teacher are you looking at?
So out of my 53 students. Without having to in place.
So like if you're looking here. So you want to see all of their attendance. Okay, so a list of all students. Okay.
Yeah. I select like I have five students. How did they? Right. How were they?
So we could do it by class. We could do student last name range. So I can do like from A to, I don't know, C. It doesn't look like I could do it. These are all just web classes.
I just wanted to ask if there was.
Yeah, there's. I don't think there is currently. I'd have to look and see. We could create certain reports to make, and I haven't gotten that far in terms of teacher reports.
I just
So. Yeah. I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
But that's a good question, yes. questions? Does anybody have other questions? Sorry, questions? Did somebody have a question?
Financial reports. Jackie helped me set up expense type summaries and all of that recently, but I think that it's more complicated than it was. I believe in Skyward, we had it set up data mining, so I could just click on that report and change the entry date. It was that simple and just print. Is that still an option with cumulative?
If the report that Jackie created for you is in data mining,
I
Is
don't think it is.
okay, so it will depend on the parameters that she created for you.
Okay.
Because the reports, when they're created, if she's doing a custom report, she would have to add a prompt for you to enter a particular date that you want to run. And that's not too difficult. It just depends on, her expertise level. I'm happy to help her with that.
Calling you.
Yeah. And then, well,
I'm
I'm not
saying
familiar with the financial side of Skyward though.
Okay.
So she would be the person to talk to about the whatever codes and information you need on the financial. But for custom reports, she can add a prompt to enter a particular date.
Okay.
So in data mining, I haven't even looked at data mining for finance side. And there's the opportunity to add filters like change particular date. But I don't know if it's going to have all of the fields that you need that you had before. So that,
Okay.
again, that would be a Jackie question.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Emer.
Is there a way of doing an IHP report in order, in class order, like grade order?
I thought we had one. Yeah, I thought we had the IHP by advisor. Isn't that the one? Let's see, IHP count, IHP count. The IHP count that's there right now, that this one, IHP count active only, is that not sorting by
No,
advisor?
So when I run down, I end up getting like 2 students on that. I don't know where the parameters are off or.
So
Number of IHPs 10, and I have a lot more than 10. And they're not in class order, they're just listed.
I'm getting 8 pages of IHPs.
Okay, so what I'm not.
So you probably set your parameters. So reset, there's a reset prompt in there to reset the parameters. Yeah, I see 48.
That's right, but I'm not getting that for some reason.
It's, yeah.
But it's
So when you're here, when you're in this screen, make sure you have your, you don't have any like dates or anything. Keep it wide open. And then I would set the option of voided to no. So you're not including any voided ones. And then the only other filter I did is the active. I just looked at active students.
wait,
And then you run it. So don't put any dates, because the dates will restrict what you see.
I don't think that I did or not.
You expand the filter, student filter, to do that. And we could talk about that at the training today too, if we need to. Other questions?
So you were saying that you've realized some efficiencies, and I was just wondering if you could give a couple examples of efficiencies that you've seen of this program.
A lot of the pieces that I use on the student side kind of have come together, so it's easier to access certain areas. The running of reports is super quick in terms of not having to wait so long for reports. The other piece is, and a lot of this is probably not applicable to everybody here, but I love creating these charts. These are kind of dynamic charts where I can give it some parameters. And I created these top ones for Fred, just so he can monitor live data. Students enroll, this number updates regularly. So, or withdrawals, these numbers update. And so these are dynamic. But it's that kind of thing that's helpful because in the old version of Skyward, we didn't have that opportunity to do that. I like the flexibility of customizing information within here. Yeah, so that kind of, yeah, the student navigation, I think, it's a challenge for a lot of people, with certain functionality has changed in terms of how to get to data. But as we get more comfortable, I think navigating, we'll see a little bit more of the positives. So, yeah. What else?
Is there a way to, get if on a classroom of kids, not just to list their names and headshots in their student profile?
That is a good question. And I'm going to work on that because right now it's going to be a custom report that I have to create. And that's on my to-do list because that's come to me a couple times. In the past, in the old Skyward, there was an option and that just hasn't carried over into cumulative because it's a custom project. So I have the ability to create custom reports so I can take that class roster and add and embed the student picture in it. I just have to take time to be able to do that. So I have not done that yet, but it is on my to-do. So, yeah. Teachers have that ability to do. Like they can run their seating chart with pictures.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us here, a lot of us cover gator times, certain days. There's different gator times every day, so it's nice if we can get that face. I've asked the teacher the one that was.
Yeah, it's part of their class. They would just go into their seating chart, classroom seating chart, as long as they've created it, and just print it, and it just shows kids with their pictures, their name and pictures.
You know, and I say, oh, and then I put.
Yeah.
But it's only.
Oh, okay.
But this, at least you give your total, their.
Okay, it looks like we're winding down on time, so I can take one more question, and then we'll give you all a break for the 2:45 session.
So the timesheets are still going around, but if you have not had a chance to sign in, I believe it's right over here in this back corner. Earlier, I was having you sign 2 different timesheets, and that was stupid, right? So I've just got one timesheet going around, sign that, and I'll just retroactively try to add you to the clock hours and see if I can do that, as opposed to trying to keep them separate. So there's just one sign, if you sign it, that's perfectly fine. I'll accept it. If you only sign one, I'll try to get you access for the tech training as well as the clock hours. In the afternoon, there's agendas that you know, on here, but there are sessions that are available on the agenda. If you're let me see if I can pull it up here. So do you want to stop and share your screen? That's great. This one here. Our presenter. Break, and then we'll go from 3:45 to 4:30. We'll be back. All right.
Field trip. Over, I couldn't find the. Alphabetically, and when you look at when you look at it, actual report, there's no, even in the alphabetical, like. Sure, so, or the grade. You know what I mean? That'd be great. Thanks.
You did? Okay. Can I put my name on there? Yes, give me one second. Let me get that card sheet.